As a baker, I deal with wheat and flour and all sorts of grains on a daily basis. Now, for many of you, you may be thinking, I don't deal with wheat. I haven't even seen a wheat field in my entire life. Now, why do I care about wheat? Well, it's funny, because a lot of people, I find wheat fascinating, and a lot of people ask me, David, why did you become a baker? And I tell them it's because I need the dough. Which, by the way, baking opens up the best just world of puns. I mean, like, why not? Or one of my personal favorites. You know what Mario's favorite bread is? Durham. Nah, Durham's a wheat. Denham. Or how about this? You guys want to start a gluten hate group with me called God Hates Faggots? Okay, I'll stop. So anyway, I find wheat fascinating, and it got me interested in finding about, a little bit of the history of wheat and like where, like how we went from hunter-gatherers to bread bakers. And it led me to this interesting story, and it finally granted me the conclusion that wheat has enslaved humanity. And by the end of this talk, you too will also agree with me that wheat has enslaved humanity. Now I'm going to tell you first a story that you've probably already heard. The life of a hunter-gatherer. This grueling, horrible existence of just like violence, mayhem, chaos, no steady meals, just ruling, no clean water, disease, short lifespan. We are all aware of like how difficult of a life it was as a hunter-gatherer, right? Like none of us would actively seek out such a life. Well, I'd like to share with you that that's actually false. Because think about it. Imagine yourself as a hunter-gatherer, wandering through the forest, hunting your prey. Not only are you fit, but you're mentally tuned. You're a very intelligent Renaissance man or Renaissance woman, being able to track the movements of the animals, view the stars as your map, be able to decipher between what plants are poisonous and which ones are edible. And you were a master craftsman of metal, stone, and tools, and you lived a very interesting, complex life in your tribe with a hierarchy, social status, and politics. And in fact, disease was basically non-existent in hunter-gatherer societies. And also the fact that the average work week of the hunter-gatherer was 25 hours a week with your food. Compare that with the back-breaking work that we do now. How many of you have ever worked on a farm, even for a day? I want you to imagine just how grueling such a lifestyle would be, to do that manual labor, to harvest the grain, to plant seeds, to basically work from dawn to dusk in order to create food for very little reward. Imagine doing that, but without modern day technology, with just your hands, a little pick, and a shovel. That would be absolutely grueling work. Why in the world would we ever trade such a great, interesting lifestyle with something so petty and silly? Well, it all began when Homo sapiens discovered a pretty standard grass that existed in the Middle East somewhere called Triticum aestivum, the modern wheat. And he realized that if he was able to take this, he was able to create something that he really liked. What do you think that was?
Bread.
Bread? Weird thing. It's actually not bread. It is beer. And then in Central America, Homo sapiens discovered teosinte, the modern corn, to make, what do you think? Not tortillas,
Alcohol.
Beer. And then we have in Asia the modern form of rice, which they cultivated not because they liked fried rice, but because they liked sake and beer. So that is right. We liked this stuff so much that we thought it was worth trading our interesting independent lifestyle to settle down so we could tend to this plant and grow it for civilization. And I know what you're thinking. You're absolutely right. Civilization was founded by a bunch of alcoholics. Congratulations, this is where we come from. Now, let's look at this from an evolutionary perspective, because you may be thinking, okay, how do you get enslaved humanity from this? Well, from an evolutionary perspective, the most successful species is based upon whose DNA has duplicated the most in the world. You're talking about a tiny grass that only lived in a tiny strip in the Middle East. You can't even go anywhere in the world and not find wheat. This country is just loaded with wheat and cornfields and rice all over the world. This is the most eaten food and grown food in the world. And guess what? What do we do for it? Wheat didn't like other plants, so we just started ripping up other plants and burning down forests so we could plant more of this wheat. And wheat's also really thirsty, so we decided to give it all of our drinking water, so we could say we would defend it night and day from predators, use all of our resources to prevent diseases from killing this plant. And for what? Worse health, a less interesting backbreaking work, more working hours? If you think about it, the word domesticate means to be in a house. If you think about it, it's not the wheat that's in the house, it's the humans. So the next time you look at a loaf of bread, or you pass a wheat or a cornfield, just remember how this tiny little plant got you drunk and convinced you to give up your incredible, diverse way of thinking, your healthy lifestyle, and a more interesting social life so you could ensure its maximal survival. Thank you.